गिरीश जी नमस्कार एक बार फिर चैनल पे। और आज बात करेंगे इंडियन इकोनॉमी विज़ चाइनीज इकोनॉमी। हमारी क्या सिचुएशन है फाइनेंशियली, इकोनॉमिकली, मैक्रो फैक्टर्स वाइज। और जैसे इंटरनेशनल मीडिया में हम लोग देख रहे हैं आजकल के चाइना की रेटिंग डाउन हुई है, उनके मार्केट का जो इवैल्यूएशन है वो भी डाउन हुआ है। और मॉर्गन स्टैनली की जो रिपोर्ट है उसमें भी कुछ उनके बारे में एडवर्स कमेंट्स हैं। और वेयर आर वी लुकिंग एट इट इन इंडिया, जैसे मोदी जी ने कहा कि वी आर गोइंग टू बी थर्ड लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी इन अनदर 3-4 years और समथिंग लाइक दैट। तो आपका इवैल्यूएशन मैं चाहूंगा मेरे दर्शकों के लिए। सो ओवर टू यू।
Thank you, Colonel sir. It's a very good topic nowadays. Everybody is discussing about the economic situation worldwide, and recently, so many things has happened, especially when the new data has come about what is happening in the economical growth of China in the last 2 quarters, and thereafter the political committee of the China has taken note of it because they really were disturbed by the growth which they were expecting after post-COVID. Actually, if you remember, during COVID, they have in the second part of the COVID, they have locked down certain part of the China totally, and that has resulted into a lot of problem entire worldwide because the export from China was restricted and it impacted entire world, and that has created a situation that everybody was talking about China plus economic situation or production facilities, because totally dependent on one country, and due to some region or other, if that get affected, entire world economy get impacted. So that was the reason post COVID China plus. Fortunately for India, our leadership was also pushing for an alternate and providing extra benefits for companies, international MNCs, or the area, high tech area, if they want to shift to India. And in that regard, we have also discussed semiconductor technology and fabrication plant. Due to some reason, Foxconn Vedanta deal couldn't take place, but both parties are working simultaneously to have a separate entity. Now we'll try to confine to the latest development, what is happened recently. Now there is a lot of newspaper and article and media. I'm not talking of Indian media, but foreign media. They were talking about, and they were, painting a very grim picture of the China, and then they were predicting that China is in a very bad shape, and they were talking with some facts. I'm not telling they are talking in thin air, but it was with the fact that Indian economy has grown, let us say 22-23, our financial year, or Q1 of 23 from the world point of view. We have gone 6.3%, which was the largest, or let's say near to 7%, which was the highest GDP growth in the top 10 economy if we count it. Like as of now, India is fifth largest economy. So from that aspect, India turned out to be one of the best functioning economy in the world. Whereas China, they were having a figure, something around, which is around 6%. It has come down to 2.2% in Q1 and 0.8% in Q2 from China point of view, GDP growth. So this was a really worrisome picture, and many European and US media houses and other things, they were predicting China is in a very bad shape. So let's analyze whether is it so bad or something. We have to analyze beyond that number. The GDP growth number is one part, but what are the factor behind it for low GDP growth for China? See, let's understand one thing. Top economy in the GDP point of view is the US, which is something around $26.8 trillion, followed by China, which is around 19 trillion. Then 4.4 and 4.3 is Japan and Germany. Around $3.75 trillion is the Indian economy, which is fifth. Now, if we look into all these 5 top economy, all are having a current account deficit, which we say that each country's export is less than their import. Means if we count US, Japan, Germany, and other, they were not having a more export, or rather, every country like India is having a account deficit is something around $40 billion, which is reducing. That's a very good point. But still, our export is lower than the import which we do. And if we count from the US point of view, their deficit is by something around $1.2 trillion. Means they import $1.2 trillion less than what they export. So their economy is also depending upon natural internal growth, whereas China is the only major economy which is export-driven economy. Means they were, out of the total export which they were having is around $3.36 trillion. And their import for the last year was 2.68. So they were having a surplus of $0.7 trillion last year, if we see. Now, what has happened in last 6 months or so, if you have seen the entire major economies are facing an inflation problem. So what they have done, they have changed their repo rate and bank rate, and every country is going in a much faster pace and increasing their interest rate. So like whether US, which is now 5.5% is the rate, which was during, or let's say pre-COVID or during COVID, it was almost nil, 0.2%. So they have increased by 5%. Same is situation in Europe, and same situation is in UK and many other major economy. So with this kind of a thing, and all these countries are facing inflation. So they are restricting to control inflation. They are taking many measures. And one of the measures is their economy is having a headwind. So they are also having a major problem in their own countries. China, if we leave China, because we'll compare it China with others. So US, Europe, and other places. So what is happening? All these countries which were importing mainly from China and other things, they are having finally finding it difficult. So it is impacting the export of the China. And that was the reason, basic reason for GDP growth in China. This is one of the major reasons. Now, is it the only reason? No, there are other reasons also. If you look at the few years back, China has clamped down on their internal private companies, Alibaba and major other companies, and there was a lot of state control and investigation and other thing. So these kind of a thing, that atmosphere which is created by the states, create a negative impact on the growth of the private companies or private companies who are working in that part. So its impact has now coming out. So the growth which was run by the, apart from state companies of the China, private companies' growth has also impacted because of the action of the government. Now, second thing, in addition to that policy, earlier what they were doing, China was doing majorly incentive and other things for the export driven. In between, they have changed to counter this thing, and then they have encouraged their what we call it construction companies, infra construction companies, and housing and other projects were taken up on a large scale, and and say a multi-billion-dollar, hundreds of $billion was invested locally. But now what is happening? That is also reached to a saturation, and they have kind of a problem what US faced in 2008. Economy was impacted because of the downfall of the real estate. The similar situation China is also facing. So these are the few factors which is impacting China. Now, in the last meeting in July, the Politburo of China, they have taken a note of it, and they are now coming out. They have to increase the domestic demand, because as I said, in the top 5 countries, China was the only country which is having more export than the imports. So their economy was basically driven by the export, and which was running their engine, and they were doing so far so good. But now they realize if other places are having an impact because of inflation or war, like as we are seeing the impact of the war of Russia and Ukraine. So other countries are also facing the heat, and their import and other business are impacted. So this is creating a situation. So these are the few factors, like the changes in US policies, inflation, which is hurting the entire Europe, US, UK, and many other countries. India is fortunately, by their policies, we have not having that kind of inflation, which double digit, which US and Europe is facing. So these are the factor which has impacted the China. Now, because of these, recently Morgan Stanley has also taken a note of it for the emerging countries, and they have upgraded India's rating to overweight and downgraded one rating to China because of these factors. So we can say it gives a signal to the foreign investor that India is a place where they can consider in case they are to shift their base from China. So these are the second positive point for India, if we say, as we have discussed in one of our topic earlier, that Reserve Bank of India has not increased the repo rate or the bank rate, so which is also helping our industries, because if the bank rates are high, it increases the input cost of the product, and which is making it difficult for export or competitive market. So whereas the Europe and US are still continuing with their increased rate, so this is advantage India. At the same time, we are having inflation, but not that alarming, which is going out of control, and we have to increase our in bank of interest rate too high. So it is a good situation for India economy point of view. The interest rates are more or less halted, and they are, even if it is going to increase, it will be very little, maybe 1 or 2 maximum, but it is not going to happen. So like what is happening in UK and in US. So these are the factors which I say has impacted, and China is in trouble, but it is not that they are out of business. They are taking corrective action, and India has to be take advantage of this situation and improve FDI and DII, so that more and more companies can shift their base, and it will be good for country like us.
अच्छा, आपने मॉर्गन स्टैनली रिपोर्ट की बात की, तो उन्होंने जो वर्ड यूज किया इंडिया के लिए, मोस्ट प्रीफर्ड मार्केट अमंग एमर्जिंग मार्केट्स, एंड ऑफ कोर्स नंबर 1 पे आई है, नंबर 6th पोजीशन पे. ओके, सो जो अर्निंग पर शेयर है, व्हाट दे से इज पीपल आर एक्सपेक्टिंग कि जो अर्निंग पर शेयर है वो सबसे ज्यादा होगी. Chinese, they have assessed they are at the end of their boom cycle. Obviously जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर है वो तो आपने भी बताया कि वो तो काफी डोल्ट्रम्स में है. अच्छा, ताइवान का भी उन्होंने ऐसा ही कहा. ऑफकोर्स ताइवान से तो हमें बहुत ज्यादा इतना इम्पैक्ट नहीं पड़ेगा, बट ऑफकोर्स चाइना, अगर थोड़ा बहुत भी वहां पे नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट आता है तो हम उसका नेचुरली एडवांटेज लेने की कोशिश करेंगे. और शायद जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने अभी जो सेमीकंडक्टर चिप्स के बारे में जो लेटेस्ट इनिशिएटिव है, जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने इनफैक्ट एक बहुत they called lot of foreign companies and they told them, especially Prime Minister Modi himself spoke to them personally and told कि we are going to be your most trusted partner. आपका क्या ख्याल है जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने बोला है कि हम we are going to be third largest economy GDP wise, say at the end of probably another 3-4 years, you take it that way. तो आपका क्या ख्याल है, ये पॉसिबिलिटी है ये टारगेट अचीव करने की?
See, as I say, there is no doubt about that. What Mr. Modi said, that India will be the third largest GDP-wise economy in his third term, because 24 we are coming for a general election, and as if the situation continues and goes, we will be having a better. More companies will continue with these policies, and then we'll have what we can say, our economy should be in the third position, overtaking Japan and Germany. As of now, there is not much difference between us and Japan, which is around $1 trillion. And if the way we are proceeding and then the way we are working, it should not be an issue. So I have no doubt, but at the same time, there are certain concerns, as you rightly said, and which we have discussed in our earlier videos also, that it is not in auto mode alone. We, apart from policies, we have to see that states, not only the central government, but the states, whichever states where all these industrial growth or industries companies or foreign investments are coming, they have to ensure that there is a good working environment, there is a good skilled labor available to them, and law and order should not be an issue, because this is the first thing which hurt any investment. So any part of our country, whether it is Haryana, whether it is Karnataka, whether it is Maharashtra, or any part of the India, I will not say only one part or second there where the industries are there, but in law and order and stability is very much necessary, and continuation of those policies, whether we can say a party A was in power or party B is coming in power, but if they continue in the policies which is good for states, good for the public, and good for the country, they should not bring party politics into it and then continue with that policy. And also, apart from Morgan Stanley, which they had given, there's another major thing which has happened just few days back, that Fitch, which is a international rating agencies, which give the country's rating depending upon the economy and the situation and what they project. They have downgraded US from the highest rating of AAA to AA. And they have, this is one of the reasons which is impacting the world. Why they have given this particular thing is because they are also saying that US economy need some correction, and they were also concerned by the policies of the government which is in power. And also, if you look at the draft limit of the country, which was discussed in their both houses, and then at the last moment they cleared it just before July and finished, and so that there's no default. Had it been a default, then situation would have been different, but this gives them alarm, and Fitch has downgraded the US rating. But having said that, if we look from overall point of view, India is in a very good situation, but we have to continue with this policy, and we also have to see that area which we need importance. It's not everything where they have to go, but high tech, if we invest more, it will be good, because there we can add value with our learned or knowledge or skill pool, and that is the where we can provide advantage over the other competitive nation from Asia. I'm not talking of China alone, but there are many other Asian nations which are providing this, manufacturing facilities and other incentives. So we have to work in a high-tech area. Semiconductor is one of that area where we have identified already, because our own business, our own import is something around $60 to $80 billion now, and next 2 years we are going for $100 billion. So this is one of the target, one of the area where India is working hard, and will try to reduce our import bill on that semiconductor line, which will indirectly, not only direct import bill, but it will also help in exports of the many other products which we're likely to make in India and produce and export outside. So that is one of the area. And also we are discussing with the EV vehicle and other thing, battery and other, which is under discussion. Let's hope those discussions concluded very fast, and India, which is the third largest automobile market worldwide, should also have their share of manufacturing in India of high tech, and not only meeting our own requirement, but meeting the world's requirement. So India should take this, advantage of this situation, which is the situation in China and situation in Taiwan, and inflation and other parts in Europe and here, and see how many industries, high-tech industries, we can bring in and bring our economy with a much faster pace. But as I said earlier, there is no doubt that very soon India will be the third largest economy from GDP point of view.
गिरीश जी, मैं आपसे एक लास्ट सवाल करना चाहूंगा, और वो लास्ट सवाल मैं करना चाहूंगा गवर्नमेंट की और प्राइवेट सेक्टर की रिलेशनशिप के ऊपर। और जब प्राइवेट सेक्टर की बात करते हैं तो टाटा की बात होती है, या फिर अंबानी की बात होती है, या फिर अडानी की बात होती है, और ऑफ कोर्स प्राइवेट सेक्टर इज ग्रोइंग इन इंडिया, नो डाउट अबाउट दैट। अब उसमें अडानी का आपको पता ही है, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी स्पेशली कांग्रेस ने जो स्टैंड लिया है, और अभी फिर चूंकि राहुल गांधी अगेन ही इज बैक टू पार्लियामेंट एज ए एमपी, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने जो डिसीजन दिया है, तो ओवरऑल एक ऐसा माहौल क्रिएट किया जा रहा है कि इट इज बेसिकली अडानी हु इज ए फ्रेंड ऑफ मोदी एंड इट इज द कांग्रेस विच इज अपोजिंग अडानी एंड ऑल दैट। इस तरह के माहौल से आपको क्या लगता है कि कंट्री के अंदर जो बिजनेस एनवायरनमेंट है वो कंड्यूसिव होता है? अब एक दूसरी बात, अभी आपको ही मालूम है कि 5 तारीख को, 5 अगस्त को, यानी कि कल जियो लैपटॉप लॉन्च हो रहा है, जिसके ऊपर मैंने आज एक छोटा सा वीडियो भी बनाया। अच्छा, साथ में एक गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की रूलिंग भी आई है, जिसमें उन्होंने जो बाहर से लैपटॉप्स इंपोर्ट होते हैं, मोस्टली कहां से होते हैं, या तो चाइना से होते हैं या साउथ कोरिया से होते हैं, उनके ऊपर भी कुछ रेस्ट्रिक्शन डाले हैं। तो लोगों ने ऑलरेडी ये कहना शुरू कर दिया कि चूंकि अंबानी का फेवर करना है, इसलिए बाहर से जो इंपोर्ट हो रहे हैं उस पर रेस्ट्रिक्शन डालें, और जो जियो के जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं उनकी क्वालिटी अच्छी नहीं है। तो फिर मैंने राइटर की एक रिपोर्ट देखी, उसमें उसने कहा कि जो इनके प्रोडक्ट की क्वालिटी है, जियो का जो पहले स्मार्टफोन्स वगैरह आए थे वो काफ़ी सक्सेसफुल रहे, और इसीलिए उन्होंने एनकरेज होके अभी ये जियो लैपटॉप वो लॉन्च कर रहे हैं कल 5 अगस्त को। तो मेरा जो आपसे सवाल है, ये जो ओपोजिशन पार्टीज हैं या फिर पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज हैं, डोंट यू थिंक, और मैंने आई हैव बीन अब्रोड आल्सो, आपको भी पता है ये बात, कि जितनी भी फॉरेन गवर्नमेंट्स हैं, वेस्टर्न गवर्नमेंट लगा लो, आप चाइनीज लगा लो, सब अपने अपने बिजनेस को सपोर्ट करती हैं छोटी से छोटी चीजों में। इंडिया जब सपोर्ट करता है इंडियन गवर्नमेंट, तो वो एक पॉलिटिकल एंगल क्यों आता है? और आपको क्या लगता है इसकी वजह से हमारा जो बिजनेस एनवायरनमेंट है, मैक्रो इकोनॉमी की मैं बात कर रहा हूं, वो भी स्पॉइल होता है, और पॉलिटिशियंस भी इस बात का एडवांटेज लेते हैं, इवन अगेन गोइंग अगेंस्ट द नेशनल इंटरेस्ट? तो एक छोटा सा कमेंट मैं आपसे चाहूंगा इसके ऊपर। ओवर टू यू।
First and foremost, we have to understand now it is not government, central government or state government, they are the biggest job provider. It is the private industries which are the biggest job provider in India. So our private companies, we cannot keep on whipping them, keep on abusing them. We political party has to understand the ground realities and appreciate the impact and the contribution by private sector, whether it is large, whether it is medium or small. They are the biggest employer in India. So which is helping, in other words, we say, otherwise what would have happened had there been not a good private industries in India? What will be the situation in employment rate? So that we have to accept the contribution of the country. Second thing, we have to also understand that until and unless, like we have seen many of the government companies, because of one reason or other, they goes into negative and in losses, and which in other words hurt the taxpayer. Ultimately, if government companies or the PSUs or those companies are running in losses, which hurt the privates, means the public payer. So public payer, taxpayers are getting hurt more, and which is a negative growth, which is impacting the growth of the country. So it is not the job of the government to go into business of construction and production. Whatever is the critical and only like defense and security, these are the area where government or state government should have their own. Rest, as much as possible, they should encourage private sector, so which is a win-win situation. Policies of the government should be encouraging, and we have seen earlier, some 20 years back, the government or the foreign ministries or embassies, they were not entertaining Indian private companies when they are going out and sourcing out for business and other things. But fortunately, from last 15-20 years, I have seen the changes in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They are encouraging Indian products. What I'm telling, the Indian product means not only PSUs or the government of India, they are encouraging Indian products, whether it comes from private companies or PSUs or government products, so that more and more exports from Indian, or they provide them opportunities, and whatever the problem these companies were facing, embassies are helping. So see, government of India is now working that area where the technology and inputs are available, infrastructure is available, we should not be a dumping. Yeah, dumping means the foreign companies are coming out and dumping their products, and then we are losing forex for that purpose. So this earlier they have made attention on the phone, and that's the reason now we are seeing Apple and Samsung, they are exporting phones which are assembled or made in India. Now the same thing they are taking it for the laptop, because this is also a major market. So with this policies, I'm sure their infrastructure is already there, ecosystem is already there. It will, within no time, you will find in a year or so, the import which were happening for one region or others will be reduced, and the same companies which were directly importing this assembled unit, they will make it here and provide it. So public will not suffer, but at the same time, utilization of the Indian skilled labor, the ecosystem will be more utilized, and it will be a win-win situation.
चलिए गिरीश जी, थैंक यू सो मच, इट हैज बीन सो एनलाइटनिंग। लोगों को एक बार को तो ऑप्टिमिज्म आना ही चाहिए इस प्रेजेंटेशन के बाद। एंड ऑफ कोर्स मोदी जी ने जो बोला है, मॉर्गन स्टैनली ने जो बोला है, तो इंडिया इज लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू गुड इकोनॉमी एंड गुड जीडीपी अहेड। थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
आपने गिरीश जी को सुना, इट इज बेसिकली चाइनीज लॉस एंड इंडियाज गेन, बट कैन इंडिया सस्टेन? Prime Minister is very optimistic, and so is Morgan Stanley, and so is probably नीलेश साहा, जिन्होंने इंडियन एक्सप्रेस में इंटरव्यू दिया इस बारे में। बड़ा डिटेल्ड इंटरव्यू है, बहुत नॉलेजेबल आदमी है वो। सो आई होप यू लाइक दिस इंटरव्यू, दिस नरेशन। लेट इंडिया बी ऑप्टिमिस्टिक। हमें अपने मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक फैक्टर्स को बड़ा स्टेबल रखना है। वी कैन नॉट अलाउ इंटरनल वायलेंस एट ऑल, we just cannot allow. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in next video. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.